In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Bible verses that helped me to decide to homestead. I decided when I was 14 that I wanted to homestead. Didn't really feel like I moved on to a true homestead until I was about 33, so it took me like 20 years of saving and building to do it. Anyway, the first passage I'm going to talk about is about the Garden of Eden. We'll start in Genesis 2, verse 8. And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yahweh Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided and became four heads. The next few verses are about the river, so I'm not going to talk about them, but we will read 15. And Yahweh Elohim took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. Anyway, this passage kind of just showed me that gardening is really what we're called to do in life. If we actually go to right up here, for chapter 3, verse 17, this is after the fall. And to the man he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, do not eat of it, cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you are to eat of it all the days of your life. And the ground shall bring forth thorns and thistles for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you are to eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you return. Anyway, what I feel like this section is telling us is that we have a curse as men, and a lot of society is trying to fight the curse, and they just go buy their food in the store. But I believe you're supposed to appreciate it, and he's telling us we're supposed to toil, to eat, work in the ground all the days of our life. And so when we fight it, or if you're a woman and you fight the conception, a lot of women, in my opinion, try to have C-sections to reduce their sorrow in their conception. And I don't think it actually reduces pain or makes their life any better. I'm talking about scheduled C-sections. If you choose to if you have a C-section in an emergency situation, I don't have any complaint about that. But planning it because you don't want the pain of normal childbirth is probably just fighting the natural order of things. And so trying to live out of the grocery store, which we sadly are doing right now because our garden hasn't been very productive lately, but having a plan to live out of a grocery store or buy your food from other people is not a great plan. And so that's kind of the start of what I had. I want to read Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 through 8. So let's go to that. Here we are. No, that's 28, but it's a long chapter. Okay, I'm just going to read the first 8 verses of this chapter. And it shall be, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard to do all his commands which I command you today, that Yahweh your Elohim shall set you high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you if you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. Blessed are you in the city, and blessed are you in the field. Blessed is the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your ground, and the fruit of your livestock, the increase of your cattle, and the offspring of your flocks. Blessed is your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed are you when you come in, and blessed are you when you go out. Yahweh causes your enemies who rise against you to be smitten before your face. They come out against you one way, and flee before you 7 ways. Yahweh commands the blessing on you in your storehouses, and in all to which you set your hand, and Yahweh shall bless you in the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. So there's a lot more blessings, and then there's a long chapter of cursing. So I've read that other times, and it's a great chapter. Might try to get a link here if I can. Anyway, it just shows us that the life he's telling us to live is an agriculturally based life. And so whether that's homesteading or farming or having a regular job but having a garden. All of those are acceptable interpretations of this. It's just the whole city life where you have no garden, no connection to the ground, seems very inconsistent with the general direction of the Bible. And they had city dwellers, absolutely, but most of them did grow crops if they could. So, our next one I'm going to go to is Lamentations 5:4, which I'll pause the video because I'm not good at finding Lamentations. I ended up going to the table of comments. Lamentation starts 795. Okay, it is saying, "Remember us, O Yahweh, what has come upon us. Look and see our reproach. Our inheritance has been turned over to strangers, and our houses to foreigners. We have become orphans, fatherless. Our mothers are like widows. We had to pay for our drinking water, and our wood comes at a price." So, I actually recently, some struggles on the homestead resulted in us buying a few gallons of drinking water. It's not a long-term purchase. It's just one time or two times to get through current difficulty, which I think we've already resolved that issue. But our modern society has people paying for water and many other things. That's like a normal bill in America. And so it's not really a normal bill under biblical understanding. So part of the homesteading life is trying not to pay for water. The next passage I want to read about is in Micah chapter 4. I'll start verse 1. "And in the latter days it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and peoples shall flow to it. And many nations shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among many peoples, and reprove strong nations afar off. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle any more. But each one shall sit under his vine and his fig tree, and no one to make them afraid, for the mouth of Yahweh of hosts has spoken. For all the peoples walk, each one in the name of his mighty one, but we walk in the name of Yahweh our Elohim forever and ever. In that day, declares Yahweh, I gather the lame, and I bring together the outcast and those whom I have afflicted. And I shall make the lame a remnant, and the outcast a strong nation. And Yahweh shall reign over them in the Mount Zion from now on and forever." So what I'm getting out of this, I was especially focusing on verse 4. Each one shall sit under his own vine and his own fig tree. That's like the symbol of peace, is we're having our fruit crops, and we're able to sit under there and rest, which sometimes on the homestead it doesn't feel like you get that much rest. But this is kind of the vision of where we're going. And I did do one Bible study, actually with my son, under the fig tree this spring. We made a video of it, but we now don't put our faces on videos, so we deleted that one. But it was kind of cool about Behemoth and Leviathan. Anyway, what's the next passage? Deuteronomy 12:23-25. Let's go there quick. Well, that was too far. Anyway, in this passage, we're going to talk about blood. And so part of the goal of homesteading is to be producing food that is cleaner. And here it is, 23. "Only be strong not to eat the blood, for the blood is the life. Do not eat the life with the meat. Do not eat it, you pour it out on the earth like water. Do not eat it, that it might be well with you and your children after you, when you do what is right in the eyes of Yahweh." So here in America, we have standards. The USDA certifies a lot of the meat produced, but it seems to have juices in it. There's no real guarantee that people have actually followed the commands about the blood. Another verse somewhere, I think in Leviticus, tells you to put soil over the blood after you butcher, and there's no way I can do that if I'm buying meat. So one of my goals is, if we're eating meat, which I'm not very evidence that we should be eating meat, but if we are eating meat, then we should be butchering it ourselves. And that's part of the homesteading lifestyle. Okay, the next passage we're going to be reading in is 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. Or do you not know that your body is the dwelling place of the set-apart Spirit who is in you, which you have from Elohim, and you are not your own? For you were bought with a price, therefore esteem Elohim in your body and in your spirit, which are of Elohim. So, people interpret this a lot of different ways, but basically I don't feel we should be putting a lot of toxic and unrighteous foods into our body. And so chief among those is GMOs and also pesticides. And when you're buying food, chemical free is usually a lot more costly. So really growing food is often the only way to feel like we're really knowing what we're putting into our body as far as food goes. And it feels like we can have a lot more control over the food purity. And so that's the basics. I'm sure there's more verses. If you got a verse you want to think about, put it in the comments. And I may be adding more in the comments later. And thank you for watching. We'll try to have another interesting video on the end screen